Thank you very much, Minister Cox. Good morning, Minister Dial Singh, Minister Cox, my cabinet colleagues, wider viewing and listening public of Trinidad and Tobago. Good morning. I am here this morning to just address a few issues, but important issues nevertheless. I would like to start off by just reminding us from where we came. We are and continue to be in very unusual and difficult times. We are facing the global pandemic that is COVID-19. All of the measures taken by the government of Trinidad and Tobago to date, every single one of them has been done to protect us, the population of Trinidad and Tobago. And importantly as well, every single measure was done after taking advice and after consulting and considering very carefully that advice from medical experts. So all of our measures are guided by the medical expert advice and are taken to protect us, the population of Trinidad and Tobago, in Trinidad and Tobago. There will be inconvenience. At times, there will be pain for all of us. No one is immune from the effects of COVID-19. The government has not made any of our decisions or implemented any of the measures that we all now live with in this state of COVID-19 based on any individual or any group of individuals. It is not an easy task. It is not an easy task. I'd like to start first of all by dealing with the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service and some of the measures that they have been doing. And I start unreservedly by thanking the Commissioner of Police and every single one of the men and women in the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service who on a daily basis, including nights, are putting themselves on the front lines to protect us, the population of Trinidad and Tobago. At the outset, the government made it very clear from the Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago that we would be not looking to legislate our way out of COVID-19. The Prime Minister and the government through the Minister of Health, the Chief Medical Officer and my other fellow cabinet members who have addressed you over time have all used moral suasion to persuade you, the population, to do what is right for your brothers and sisters at this time and to abide by the measures, abide by the moral suasion, because the medical evidence is clear and you can see it happening globally. This virus is spread by contact and it is a very dangerous virus that can prey on some of the weaker in our society. So the measures were done to implement and to slow down the spread of the virus, or stay-at-home regulations. The police service, we've been meeting on a daily basis, and it's funny, in our last 3 daily outings over the last 72 hours before today, we were talking about what would be the challenges coming ahead. The roadblocks that were implemented across country last week Friday were necessary. And I'd just like to remind the public, these roadblocks are not based on the stay-at-home measures and the regulations and provisions. Crime and criminality continues to affect Trinidad and Tobago. The police have the power to have roadblocks at any hour, any time, based on either intelligence or evidence, or just for them to be able to check on our licenses or insurance, but also on other occasions when we're looking for something, the police are looking for something in particular. So roadblocks are not a COVID measure. The police are also entitled in law to ask any one of us, on the grounds of any reasonable suspicion, whether what we are going about our business to do. And we just respond to them. I'm going to the grocery, I'm going to the pharmacy, I'm going to work, etc. And that is all outside of COVID. And 3 days ago, in meeting with the Commissioner of Police and one of his Deputy Commissioners of Police and our intelligence services and the Defence Force, we predicted that it would be only a matter of time before someone sought to throw some mischief amongst this. So I'd like to start by saying the Commissioner of Police has briefed, as of yesterday morning, the police service at his Comstat, his weekly Comstat, that these measures that the police are implementing, and understand there's a trickle down. It's over 7,000 police officers on duty throughout Trinidad and Tobago, not at the same time, but at various times. police officers conducting roadblocks, etc., do so within the ambit of the law. No one is seeking to use the stay-at-home regulations. So to try and draw distraction and mischief on that basis, I'm going to deliver food or I'm going to pick up food for my girlfriend, is an unnecessary distraction, and not one that the police service will be distracted by. So I congratulate and I thank the men and women of the police service for continuing to do what it is they are doing on a daily basis to try and keep us, the population of Trinidad and Tobago, safe. Continue. You have the support of the civic-minded and right-minded citizens of Trinidad and Tobago. I'd also like to say that what the Commissioner of Police in his briefing this morning has now instructed is the use of the body cams at some of these roadblocks. So we, the population, will see what is the truth and what is really happening and what we can then judge our brothers and sisters on. Loopholes. Unfortunately, as I was just discussing with my two colleagues, over the last few days, we're seeing more and more people attempt to find loopholes in the regulations. And what do I mean by that? Persons buying maybe 10 loaves of bread, putting it in their storefront and claiming to be a bakery. Persons all of a sudden selling mops and brooms and some disinfectant and saying that they are a grocery store. These attempts to circumvent the regulations and the measures that are designed to protect us, the population, really just make everyone's life that much more difficult. But we will continue to do what needs to be done. The Commissioner of Police continues to be in constant contact with me throughout the course of the day. A two-way street. Sometimes I get things that I then pass on to him. We discuss it with regard to interpretations. We may not always get it 100% right. But again, I can assure the population of Trinidad and Tobago, every single decision being made is to try and protect you, the population, from the spread of this potentially deadly disease, virus, called COVID-19. Border control. Well, border control has been a topic for the last couple of weeks. Again, I'd like to speak very briefly on border control. This was done, this is the closing of our borders to non-nationals and to nationals progressively. It didn't happen overnight, but it took place progressively. I've already gone through on my last two occasions here the history of when, on 30th of January, the Minister of Health came to Cabinet based on the advice he got from his medical experts. Let us implement some regulations, not in the legal sense of the word, but travel restrictions for persons coming from China. And step by step, we took measures over time as to adding other countries if you've been there over 14 days. Until around the 16th of March, we took a specific decision to say from the 17th of March, midnight, we would no longer allow non-nationals. Every one of these decisions was based on the medical expert advice that we received. I'd also use this point on the 12th of March at a post-cabinet press conference. We did, I think it was the Minister of Health and myself, we did tell the population that we had taken a decision at cabinet for all non-essential travel of public servants. We weren't permitting it anymore. That was on the 12th of March. And on that occasion, we also told you, the population, please, only travel if it is absolutely necessary, essential, or an emergency situation on the 12th of March. Our borders were eventually closed on the 23rd of March, midnight of the 22nd of March, to all. This was not an easy decision. It was not a decision that we wanted to take. But again, it was a very carefully thought through measure based on the medical advice. And I dare say it has worked to protect Trinidad and Tobago. So our decision to close the borders is done to protect those in Trinidad and Tobago. I just want to remind the population, importation of this virus is what we're combating. That's one of the things we're combating. You all would recall, as we've gone through the history over the last 2 weeks, starting on the 12th of March, how this virus came to be imported in Trinidad and Tobago. So the closure of our borders is a very understandable measure to try and stop that importation. Any breaking of our borders at this stage has the potential to start importing the virus back into our environment. And the importation of this virus will not only put our frontline health workers at risk, but it stands the potential to put all of us in the population of Trinidad and Tobago at risk. So just understand that simple principle. Re-importation of this virus into our environment, that is Trinidad and Tobago, will affect all of the population once again. It's not necessary to point to the over 50 cases that came from one importation. Our medical experts have advised that this measure is a necessary measure, and we will continue to keep our borders closed. Second waves. Persons who are observing what is going on, as we in the government are around the world, will note that anyone who started to relax their border control and allow persons to free flow or even restricted flow across the borders to certain categories, for example, their nationals, immediately began to experience a second wave that can be worse than the first wave of infection from COVID-19. The Minister of Health referred to a few moments ago. Singapore, one of the points of everyone looking at a few weeks ago, started to ease on their restrictions with their border control. Immediately a second wave hit them. Japan, states of emergency across their country, unfortunately, again because of the easing of restrictions. South Korea, and there are a number of other jurisdictions. Bearing all of that in mind, after consulting with our medical experts, we have no intention at this stage to allow our borders to become porous and allow persons a free flow of access. This is being done to protect us, the population, who are here. I remind you, as the Prime Minister has told us and as we've repeated in these forums, there are over 330,000 nationals of Trinidad and Tobago who are outside of Trinidad and Tobago. Just imagine if we even allow an importation of 100 or 200 persons to run the risk of bringing a second wave of the virus into Trinidad and Tobago. That is something we are very clear at the government level we cannot allow to happen. And we're doing everything we can to protect our borders and to protect you, the population, here in Trinidad and Tobago. Our position remains persons or 330 nationals who are outside, shelter in place. We understand it is going to be inconvenient, difficult, painful in instances. Our measures with respect to exemptions are continuing in the strictest of ways. On a daily basis, I receive a lot of requests for exemptions, and each is carefully considered and dealt with in a very strict protocol and procedure manner. We cannot reopen our borders. We all have family members, every single one of us, I'm sure, who are outside. I heard the Minister of Health. We all know about the Prime Minister and his personal circumstances. None of us is immune, including myself. And we would all wish our family members to be back home in the safety and comfort of our homes, but understand international travel, in particular airlines, cruise ships, those are the nest beds potentially of reimportation of this virus, and that is what we're seeking to prevent. I am happy to say that the Prime Minister has taken a decision, and we've discussed it this morning. We started discussing it actually a couple of days ago with respect to our students in UE, at the various UE campuses. The Prime Minister has instructed the Minister of Finance to work along with the Minister of Education for us by Monday. We're aiming for by Monday to get care packages to either the various campuses in UE, Mona and Kayville, or to our embassies or high commissions or consulates or missions abroad, for us to be able to provide some level of relief to our students who are outside. The truth is, at this stage, as much as you think it is inconvenient, and we do have empathy, the best thing to do is to shelter in place, and that continues to be our position. I will continue to look at your request for exemptions, and no amount of lawyers lawyering up and sending it to me is going to change anything, because every single one is looked at in a certain process and procedure. So our students and the families of the students, continue to support them, the families who can, but the government is going to take certain actions to try and get care relief packages to our students at these various campuses across the university, across the CARICOM region. Cruise ships. I want the population of Trinidad and Tobago to understand something. There are well over 250, understand that number, 250 nationals on cruise ships across the region, across this Western Hemisphere now, who want to come back home. Understand how quickly that will feed into our environment. Right now, From what we've been told, each and every one of them is in their own room, being fed properly and having entertainment. We understand, because even people here who have stay-at-home measures, the difficulty you face, you begin to get literal cabin fever. But right now, Trinidad and Tobago is not prepared. We cannot take that surge of persons from cruise ships back into our environment whilst we're trying to protect the people here in our environment and in our population. Understand, that is not an easy decision to take. It is one that personally weighs on me very heavily, and in particular when I discuss these provisions with my cabinet colleagues and the Prime Minister. But it is a necessary measure that we must continue to take at this stage. We will not also allow other countries who continue to have their borders open and continue to allow international flights in be used as a jumping point into Trinidad and Tobago. Understand, even some of our CARICOM neighbor countries who continue to allow travel to their country, we are not going to permit those countries to be used as an entrance point to the borders of Trinidad and Tobago, as is their people trying to do right now. Yesterday, on the instructions of the Prime Minister, a letter was sent by the Minister of Foreign Affairs to make just this point to one of our CARICOM neighbors. And I'm just going to read some excerpts of it, because you need to understand we cannot allow other countries who have less restrictive border controls be used to infiltrate our border. It can't be an entry point. If you go to Barbados, you can then believe from Barbados you can just jump on a plane, come across to Trinidad, or put that pressure on us, because it will defeat all that we've been doing to protect us here. So yesterday, the Minister of Foreign and CARICOM Affairs of Trinidad and Tobago, Senator the Honorable Dennis Moses, dispatched a letter to one of our CARICOM neighbors. He took the opportunity to present compliments and to wish that country all of the very best in their dealings with the global pandemic that is COVID-19 and the ill effects. He went on to advise that in Trinidad and Tobago, we began our measures to restrict the spread of COVID-19 on January 30th, 2020, when our cabinet imposed travel restrictions on anyone who had traveled from the People's Republic of China within 14 days prior. We continue to implement measures very carefully designed on the basis of advice received from our medical experts to limit and restrict the spread of COVID-19 virus from time to time. On March 16, 2020, it was announced that Trinidad and Tobago would be closing its borders from midnight on March 17 to all non-nationals. And on Saturday, the 21st of March 2020, the government announced that Trinidad and Tobago would be closing its borders to nationals and non-nationals alike from midnight on the 22nd of March 2020. This decision was not one made lightly or easily, and was again based on clear medical expert advice that it was a measure that would protect the population in Trinidad and Tobago from the continued importation of COVID-19 virus. The clear evidence is that the spread of the virus was promoted by international travel, including travel on airplanes and cruise liners. Please be advised that our borders currently remain closed to both our nationals and non-nationals, and this measure should not be compromised. With the greatest of respect, we cannot have our decision to keep our borders closed compromised by nationals or non-nationals of Trinidad and Tobago using this particular CARICOM country as a jumping point. We respect your decision to continue to keep your borders open, but as explained above, ours are closed. In the circumstances, we request that you kindly respect our position and not permit your good offices to be used by those who may wish to compromise our current border measures. Ladies and gentlemen, we are not in usual times, we are in very difficult times, but the government will continue to keep our borders closed. We continue to ask persons to shelter in place. We will continue to apply our exemptions in the strictest measures, with the emphasis being on protecting the population here from a re-importation for the spread of COVID-19. There was a story I'd just like to caution as well. It disturbed me a few nights ago to see a story on TV6 of a person in Venezuela who claimed that he went down to Margarita, I believe, to look for treatment, cancer treatment, for a family member of his, and that family member unfortunately passed away. A number of things jumped out at me when I watched that story. One, I knew nothing about it. But two, I then began to wonder, but you're going down there at a time when the borders are already being shut. We've said only go for emergency or absolutely necessary travel, and you've gone without the patient that you'd like to get the treatment. Nevertheless, I listened to the story because everyone is free to tell their own story. Less than an hour after the story aired, persons began to reach out to me personally. By the next morning, family members had reached out to me and spoken to me personally. Minister Cox was one of the first people to draw what family members were saying about that story. It was false. It was completely fake and false. By the following morning, before 8 o'clock, family members had gotten hold of me and spoken to me personally to distance themselves from this person who was on television, TV6 News, claiming that the government was the worst thing and preventing him from coming home, and he went there to get treatment for his family. They said that was not true. And they took great umbrage to it. They said that his credit card in those circumstances continued to be topped up in Trinidad, etc. But they wanted us, the government, to know that they supported our measures, that their family member had passed away. And our sympathy and our condolences went out to them, but that there was no truth to the reason this individual had gone there and he had no authorization from the family. These are the things we face. It doesn't deter us in government from continuing to do what we need to do to protect the population. I'll tell you, personally, it's not easy being bombarded constantly by these stories and persons with their agendas. But the Prime Minister leading his cabinet, we will continue to hold fast and listen to our medical experts. Venues, Minister Dayal Singh touched on it. The Trinidad and Tobago Defence Force has been working hand in hand with the Ministry of Health, and I'd like to take this opportunity to applaud them for the great work. A week ago, when we began looking at our outlook and planning, we identified a number of venues. I personally got involved knowing that Minister Dayal Singh is dealing with the medical issues coming at him very quickly, along with the Trinidad and Tobago Defence Force, to provide that support we had promised. We went to Tacarigua. We went to the home of football. The home of football is a great success story. I'd like to take the opportunity. We turned that venue around with the Trinidad and Tobago Defence Force and the Ministry of Health in less than 72 hours, getting it from where it was to where it absolutely needed to be. I'd like to thank all of the corporate sponsors that came. It was at a site visit, picking up the phone, understanding how quickly we needed it as a step-down facility. Because you see, every facility that is used by persons then needs to be sanitized. So the Balandra facility couldn't be used. It needed an airing out period and to be sanitized. I thank FIFA and the Normalization Committee and even the Trinidad and Tobago Football Association for coming forward. I got that call, if I remember correctly, on a Wednesday or Tuesday afternoon to offer it as a venue. Got hold of the Honorable Prime Minister. He gave the go-ahead for us to go and scope it and to check it. By the next morning, we were there with the Defence Force. Corporate sponsorship came from Ansa McCall. Beacon provided the public liability insurance. I had a number of companies providing us with the fire extinguishers, SafeTech, and some other companies. We then, and also the fire science corporate, Trinidad and Tobago, came speedily forward to help us get it ready. We had Flow provide the cable and the internet for each room. We had WASA on site within a matter of hours, doing all that needed to be done to get the water supply working. The Defence Force worked overnight to fix the sewerage system. CPEP, Minister Kazim Hussein and the CPEP gangs got there in a matter of hours after request, cleared the place, built fire trails. I am going to miss certain names. Mr. Robert Haddad personally donated light bulbs and other things to assist. Everybody just came together. It's a great success story. And that is one of the instances of what our Defence Force is doing on a daily basis. It is ready. It was up and ready within 72 hours. I did a number of site visits along with Minister Dayal Singh's Ministry of Health personnel. And it was amazing how we got washing machines, dryers, electricals, everything up and running in 72 hours. That team has now moved to the Debe campus that I visited yesterday morning with them. I'd like to thank the University of the West Indies, Professor Marlene Atz, Professor Copeland, and the many others in their team. We will have the Debe campus. There are 4 dormitories of 24 units each in these 4 buildings. It will be up and ready by Friday. I was there yesterday with the Defence Force, Minister Dayal Singh's Ministry of Health personnel, and the UE personnel. We did a tour. And in touring the Debe campus, we discovered that there are other facilities there. God forbid we need to use them. We can quickly turn around, the same way Tacarigua has been turned around. 33 nationals that came in were taken to Tacarigua yesterday, and that is how it goes. Every time there's going to be an influx of use of these facilities, you then need to think about others, because God forbid we have a surge and that we need to deal with it. I may have missed out names, I'm certain I've missed out names, but thank you for all of corporate Trinidad who came together to help and assist us in getting these facilities up and ready. Yesterday at DB campus, the last thing we need is drapes and blinds for 92 rooms just to get them going. One of the buildings we'll use for the health personnel there, the other 3 will be utilized by persons that we will put if and when the time becomes ready. So we're right now at the DB campus getting it finally ready. I'd like to also take the opportunity to thank the regional corporation there yesterday, because the DB campus could not get approvals. 1 phone call, 2 phone calls, working along with WASA Fire Services, all of these areas. And this morning I was sent a copy of the approval that was given. Thank you for everyone coming together and doing what we need to do to get Trinidad and Tobago ready for our COVID response. Thank you to the Trinidad and Tobago Defence Force. It would be remiss of me not to point out this is what they do. They're securing every single one of these facilities. They're the ones moving persons from decanting and to facilities. They're the ones doing the engineering work and assisting Ministry of Health in some of the most mundane of jobs, but getting it done. Thank you. For those who said that all you were doing is shining boots and medals, once again, in your own silent but efficient way, you've proved to Trinidad and Tobago how well you work, and I thank you. Citizens of Trinidad and Tobago, insofar as our airports are open, other airports are open in the region, it can't become the potential to get into our border control and to infiltrate our border control. With respect to the 33 nationals who arrived yesterday from Barbados, I want to put on public record, they were in a very, very different category. Even before they arrived in Barbados, I personally had spoken to the Prime Minister of Barbados and her Attorney General on the 23rd of March. And part of the agreement with the government of Barbados on the 23rd of March was once they had completed their quarantining process and there was a process of testing or medical examinations. At that time is testing. Understand how fluid this is. Any one of you pinpoint yourself back to the 23rd of March to today, how different things have changed and measures have been implemented. On the 23rd of March, the agreement with the government of Barbados was once that quarantine period had ended in Barbados, we'd see about getting them home. That is a very different category to all of the other exemptions that are being looked on a strict case-by-case basis and for consideration, bearing in mind all I've spent some time this morning explaining about why we must continue to protect our borders. One completely unrelated point, seedlings. We are pressing ahead with agriculture in Trinidad and Tobago. I'm happy to hear the Honourable Prime Minister told me as I was coming in here. With respect to seedlings and those who produce seedlings, you are covered under the regulations. There's specific regulations here that cover you, where agricultural inputs, etc. But the point is you are covered by the current regulations. Please continue to proceed producing your seedlings that are needed for agriculture at this time. I end by saying this. I thank all of those who are helping us in these difficult times. Shelter in place to those who are outside. Understand that we, the government, are trying and we're doing all that we possibly can to prevent the spread of this virus. It is spread by contact. Allowing people back in increases this risk. The importation of the virus can be the wave that determines the fate of Trinidad and Tobago. Stay home, stay safe, and I'm committed. The government of Trinidad and Tobago is committed to doing all that we can to continue to protect you, the people of Trinidad and Tobago. Thank you very much, Minister Cox, Minister Dial Singh, population of Trinidad and Tobago.
Thank you very much, Minister.